Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Coffee and Analytics. I'm your host, Nick Powles, publisher of 1851franchise.com, a part of the Mainland family of brands. Very happy to have you with us today. Lots to go over for those of you that get to watch this in real time. Hopefully there's some good insights or takeaways that you will get out of this session. For those of you that are watching this beyond today, which is December 16th, hopefully you're finding some nuggets within our websites where this gets published beyond our conversation. All right, so a lot to unpack today. Let's get started. Let's just dive in. All right, so why 2023 and 2024 will be your year. Now, there is definitely shakiness going on in the economy right now. I see Bitcoin right now, if I look over at CNBC, is down to $16,000 per coin. Stock market is down. Tech losses are accelerating. So all of this noise or happening is much different of a narrative than, say, a year ago when it's like, yay, we're making all this money, stock market's great. And so what that does is, and you know this, the news can influence some of the decisions or the buying behavior of your candidates and the behavior that you're going to go through as a franchisor because, it creates fear or uncertainty. Now, if we were to zoom out of current financial situation and look at the holistic meaning or value of today, you would see it's a blip. Like, no one's going to care about 2023 and 2024 when your life is set. And so it puts it in perspective when you attach back just a real life view of, in the grand scheme of things, what happens in the next 2 years. Is that really going to have that big of effect on the world, on our lives, on our careers? Probably not. But the turbulence that happens does create an area of opportunity. And so if we look at 2023 is already gearing up to be a complex year. I can see that in some of our client behavior, whether that's decreasing spend from an advertising standpoint, or starting to maybe not push down the brake, but starting to hover over it and saying, do we need to buckle up and stockpile cash to protect ourselves for 2023? There's noise of it, but we'll get back into that. 24 is going to be an interesting year as well because it's an election year. So that's going to give us back-to-back years, arguably a 24-month period where I see it as an area of opportunity. Downturn, election year, opportunity, because turbulence tends to create an opportunity for change. So if we compare it to, let's just say, dating or marriage, if there's turbulence in a marriage, that leads to separations or divorces. And the same can be true for careers, and the same can be true with life moments. So turbulence causes gentle panic or panic, and panic tends to drive change. And so a 2023 and a 2024 is your area as a franchisor to push down the pedal and make sure that you own the opportunity and not put on the brake and miss the opportunity. So the missed opportunity is going to happen for those brands that played not to lose. There are definitely brands that are playing to win. Some of those are private equity backed, but that doesn't mean only private equity backed brands are the ones that are having this acceleration. In fact, I see some private equity funds right now operating scared, taking off the pedal, even though they've invested millions and millions of dollars into the brands that they've acquired. They're starting to be fearful. Why? They tend to not understand franchising as much as they should. Again, these are acceleration years for franchising. Franchising works opposite of economic conditions because of that turbulence, and turbulence ends up creating franchisees. So you got to think through that model to get here. So brands that played not to lose are going to be the brands that at the start of 25, when the election is settled, we're beyond a downturn, which tends to be 9 months. We're beyond that. The brands that said let's not grow anymore, let's pause it, which I'm going to talk about another alternative in a second. Those are going to be the brands that might run into some challenges. Those that didn't accelerate franchisee support, downturn also trickles down to the unit level. I was at a franchisor conference, and they were talking about how they're on a mission to become a $1 billion brand. I look in the room and I see franchisees who probably average unit volume is south of $500,000. When you're making less than $500,000 and you're hearing the word billion, it's hard for you to relate. And so my comment there is become super relatable to what your franchisees are going through, and definitely dial into how can we impact their sales the most. I was looking at a food brand recently, looking through some of their food costs, definitely increasing. And I said, okay, but what items on your menu are not increasing? They're like this, and this. I said, so are they in your marketing strategy for 23? They're like, well, no, it's not our core menu item. I said, but you make profit on them? Well, yeah. And they're not really high from a food cost standpoint? Well, yeah. And people rave about them? Well, yeah. Well, then why don't we accelerate those? And so that's part of franchisee support, is you have to be the thought leader to help impact their bottom lines, and think through what is the strategy that's going to get us through the next 24 months on the consumer side. Again, huge opportunity on the franchise side. On the consumer side, there is some buckling down that needs to happen, just to make sure that you can weather this storm. Now, the good news about weathering storms is that the industry, franchising and business in general, just did that. We did that with COVID. We went through it. We battled through it. A lot of brands figured out a way to accelerate things beyond COVID. You can see that in all the advertising that's coming out for franchise brands right now. I looked at the recent issue of the multi-unit franchise magazine, and it's all same-store sales, comp sales to show that brands weathered the COVID storm. So we have short-term, if we access our short-term memory, we have short-term things that we did, or things that we did a short time ago, that should impact accelerating franchisee support. The ones that missed the opportunity are the ones that aren't going to go and say, how do we support our franchisees in a larger way right now? Treat it like it was COVID, to give them the scaffolding that they need. And then I think there's a huge missed opportunity, and this is happening in franchising right now, of not seeing success or the measurement of success. There are plenty of brands where I say, how was this year? And they were like, it was good. Not what we expected. And I said, okay, what did you expect? And they say X. I said, did you put the financial resources against getting X? And they say no. And I say, okay, well, you didn't invest in what you wanted to accomplish, yet you accomplished what the data was suggesting you would. Isn't that success? And the answer is yes. And then that's the thing. Like, I think success is almost in the eye of the beholder, that it's a measurement of what's in your brain. And you're not wrong. We've been trained as humans to constantly try to outperform or grow. Therefore, it's sometimes hard to see, the wins that are sitting in front of you. So the brands that don't say, well, let's take a step backwards and celebrate our victories, as small as they may have been in 22, are some of the brands that are going to probably approach 23 the wrong way. So the chart goes up and down. Again, if you want to win in 23, you can make the decision today, December 16th, 2022, that this coming year is going to be your year, and you start putting the pieces in place to make sure that you're positioned to win. Let's go to the next one. Go back. Data and momentum. Franchise CRMs are not the future. There are fine CRMs that exist in franchising. CRMs are the systems that are used primarily for managing your leads. Candidate comes into the funnel. What happens next? It creates a database for you. Where they are not the future, they can be. They can also make a decision to elevate up their technology to get it into a place that can impact the franchisor. But I will say, as I've studied the CRMs over the last quarter, it is not giving strong attribution, and it's doing a disservice to franchising by not talking about the journey. Versus a HubSpot, on the other hand, gives you a very strong glimpse of what is that journey. Are your candidates opening up your emails? Are they going to your website? Are they reading your content? Are they looking at your PR? Are they opening up your emails? And so we have a very sophisticated client that we work with that creates attribution scoring against the candidates so that it builds a little bit more predictability. So we know that when a candidate hits X score from an engagement standpoint, it will push them into a place where they are now ready to talk to the sales team. And so that is sophistication. Salesforce, HubSpot, sophisticated technology tools. And I say that they do come with expenses. Our business operates fully through HubSpot. And that's all areas of our business. It's the sales side, it's the PR side, it's the content side. It's part of the design side. And so there are levels of sophistication that exist. Those levels, again, tend not to exist in franchising. Why do I know this? Because every time I have a conversation with a franchisor that says, well, LinkedIn is not producing anything for me. I said, well, wait a second. You think that the buyer reads your article or your link on LinkedIn and says, I want to buy a business that costs a lot of money, that comes with a lot of red tape, that I don't have control over, and I'm going to pay a royalty on? And the answer is no, that's not how the candidate journey works. Candidate journey, they click on that article, they come into your website, they leave your website, they go on the web, they go into your unit, they experience your product, they talk with franchisees, they talk with another brand. Like the world is so crazy in that process that the way that these attribution tracking is set up to do is to say, that lead came from Google or that lead came from LinkedIn. And I still think the number one referral source should be the consumer site, because you go back to the web, you search for insert brand, you go to their consumer site, you click franchise, and you go into the funnel, or you go into their website, you click fill out information, you go into the funnel. So that should be showing up high on your Google Analytics. But because that attribution is rough in franchising, oftentimes decisions are made to abort a process, even though it can be having impact. So the brands that have had the greatest success and the brands that probably have the greatest amount of happiness are the brands that say, here's our budget, here's how we're going to deploy it in a whole bunch of different areas so that we can impact the candidate when they're ready to buy. I also like thinking about real estate sales as it relates to franchising. And if you think about buying a house, just for the pure complexity of it, you go online. Again, think about the buying the house journey. You go online, you go to Zillow or Redfin, find a house you like, you get a real estate agent, you send those houses to them. The real estate agent presents you with a few more houses. You work it down to, okay, this is the house you want. You've made the decision that you want to make an offer. You make an offer, it counters, go back and forth, gets rejected, you're back into the funnel, gets accepted, you move into that house, you buy that house, you don't like that house a year later, what can you do? You can say, no, I'm out. I'm going to sell that house. I'm going to move. I don't like this. I don't like my neighbors. I don't like my neighborhood. I don't like my home. And you bounce. In franchising, you can't do that. You can't get into it and just say you bounce. So you think about the complexity of it, it's much more complex to buy a franchise than it is to buy a house. Now, think about the way that the real estate agent treats the candidate in the process. Information, comps, comparable homes. Do we give comparisons to other brands in the space? Do we encourage the candidate to be financially sound? Are we walking them through a home inspection? No, like there's a lot of things that's about buying a house that are so sophisticated, but when we get into franchising, we don't cross-apply those same things into it. And buying a house is much less complex. Therefore, if we think about the franchise buyer journey, it's not going to be last click attribution. 6.4 months showcases the journey. That's what our our franchisees are saying after they've bought. On average, 6.4 months is how much time it took them from finding out about your brand to going onto your website and filling out that form. Not to buying, to filling out the form. And so 6.4 months is a long time. Think of all the things that can happen in that process. I've been thinking about buying a new car now for about 6 months, and it's not every day that I go and look on a website and look at features on what am I looking for to try to narrow down my focus. But I'm going around the web. So if I were to buy, say, a Cadillac, Cadillac would say in a comparison to franchising world would say, well, he came from Google, because I Googled Cadillac. I clicked on, usually I don't click on the first one because it's usually an ad. Click on their website. I go and look at inventory, but that would come through Google. But the reality is, if I back it up, it could have been a commercial that I saw. Speaking of that, think of the big businesses that buy TV commercials. I can see one on the TV right now. What's their attribution? Does the big companies, I mean, you can see how many commercials exist. Do they say, nope, TV advertising doesn't work because I can't see attribution? No, they continue to do it as a part of the puzzle piece. So my number one advice when it comes to leveraging data and using it for momentum is to get comfortable with the idea that a sum of a whole bunch of different things can have impact on how that candidate is behaving. Therefore, the sum of everything is how you equal success. Can you find things that don't work as well as other things? Totally. And I would advise you to keep challenging that, to keep optimizing or fine-tuning the way that you spend your cash. But remember, the sum of a lot equals the return that you're going for. Recruiter placement. I put this in my note. If you have not read the note, it'll be posted on 1851 Franchise so that you can read it. But I have a friend who just moved franchisor brands. His salary is north of $300,000. That means the recruiter is getting somewhere in the range of $75,000. The recruiter did find the candidate on LinkedIn and did push him through. But if you think about attribution of that buyer process, it was not just finding him on LinkedIn. He wouldn't say it was just LinkedIn. He would say, I talked with him. I reviewed his resume. I did some reference checks. We did salary search. We did a background check. And again, like the whole point is you're talking about a $75,000 deal on a candidate that costs the brand $300,000. You think of all of the depth that goes into that process to get someone to the finish line. The same thing is true with franchising. And a lot of that is happening away from your website. Predictability and funnel. I think this is going to be a critical thing for every brand as we hit next year to fine tune your budget, build predictability. The easiest way to do it is if you load up your Google Analytics, you go to Geo, you look at locations, you look at your top 10 states, and you look now cross apply in how many units do you have in that state and how much opportunity do you have in that state. You can start building out where should we be spending that money, and also where do we have our highest levels of traffic coming to the site. That means there are human beings coming there that we don't know if they're qualified candidates or if they're even ready to buy, but we know we have a funnel of human beings that are looking at the website in that state. And if that state is important to you to grow, now when you build out your spend, you're going to want to optimize against that. So how to build out spend? My recommendation is 75% of all of your marketing spend should be in those primary markets. 25% as more of a blanket spend that could go into some of the trade magazines, trade shows that might not be in state. Like that's a blanket spend. And so when you start dividing that up, now you're spending the bulk of the dollars in the markets that you could have the greatest effect. Number 7, ads, marketing, PR is all the same. There's different values to it, but at some point, I feel like every marketing ad agency, PR firm, whatever, got into a stadium. They go, let's break these all out as separate services, but it's all marketing. It's all marketing your opportunity. And when you have the right message that you're putting outbound, you have a chance to win. Going back to the multi-unit franchise magazine, I opened this up this month. I would say 2 of the ads had humans in it. Everybody's selling the financials. Okay, but the candidates are saying the 2 things that push them over the edge is culture and the business model. Financials is definitely a part of the business model, but what about the culture side? And so you're trying to cut through the clutter. Let's say you drop $10,000 for that full page ad that exists in the magazine, or it's a part of your exhibiting at the multi-unit show. Regardless, you spent money on it and energy and creative and time. If it only talks about the business opportunity, you're missing the opportunity to talk about the culture, and that's marketing. And so when you take the right message to the right people, you know that there's multi-unit operators that read that magazine. You have to cut through the clutter with a message that answers your why you, why now, and then showcases what is the business opportunity, which can be found in financials, and showcases the culture, which can be shown in the leadership, the support, and your franchisees. That needs to be a part of your puzzle as you go forward. The news. I'll run through a few of these. Meta, Facebook parent company, is laying off 1,000 employees. Redfin has laid off 862 people. Salesforce, which I called one of the best CRMs, laid off hundreds of employees. Citigroup laid off dozens of employees. Twitter laid off half of its staff. Lyft, 500 people. And so you start going through this list. This opens up the pool of human beings that are going to be going through a career transition. And now some of that workforce, because businesses cut the fat, they're trimming the fat, there's properly capitalized human beings that just gained or will gain in 23 and 24 what I would deem the most valuable part of a franchise candidate, which is the chip on the shoulder. And so now they're pissed. And so they have a little bit of money. They're frustrated. They're like, I am not going to go work for someone again. And some of these folks might go start their own consultancy, but some of these folks are going to say, well, what about franchising? If you're there with open arms to say, come on in, let me show you why us. Let me show you someone else who was laid off and changed the pathway or the direction, projectile of their careers and their business lives. Now you can use this as a leverage point to move forward. Layoffs drive change, big change. And therefore, what is another opportunity from a change management standpoint is to, and you see this in some of the brands, play up how much time it takes in your business. Can you still live with your family? Can you still give your family the time that they need? I was talking with Sylvan franchisees earlier this week, and they're like, I never miss an event. My kid comes to my office. That's family. And family continues to come up as a part of the reason why a franchisee even got into it. Therefore, we have a holiday coming up, showcase the families. Even if you don't have time, we're 9 days away from Christmas. If you just simply put up an ad that says, celebrating our friends and family of our staff, of our customers, like something that just shows that you care, is good enough for now. For next year, get it on the calendar that all the heavy family moments, Valentine's Day, husband, wife, Easter is a family moment, July 4th, family moment, Labor Day, Memorial Day, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah. Get these onto your game plan for next year so that you can constantly use those moments to highlight humans that care about their family, so that now when you're sitting there, next weekend, you're having Christmas dinner with your family, like, next year I would like to spend a little bit more time with these folks. And, let's say there's a layoff coming. It's your opportunity to showcase that in your brand, family can be a part of your next journey. So play that up. Play for 6 to 12 months. In most brands, you buy now. Training, onboarding takes time. That could be 6 months from now that they get onboarded. We also have the insight that leads take 6 months to be manufactured. So you're really playing for the middle point of next year. I would advise go to July 1, write down what you think the business is going to be at, current stage, where you think it's going to be at. Say, what would I have done differently to accelerate it in a different way? Whether you do all those things or not in the backcasting moment, it will still give you some thought and some ideas against how can you accelerate this stuff. And so I put what is winning in July. Start thinking about July now. So if we're going to play up into July, we're going to have just a baseline of buzz and things going. Where are areas of opportunity? And you think through the candidate. Who are they? You really nail this. If I said, who is your candidate? Where do they live? Have that answer. Now we get into how much money do we want to budget to get more of these candidates into our funnel? Now we say, how can we best impact that person? Whether that's PR, whether it's content, whether it's websites, whether it's videos, whether it's digital advertising. Build up your list of ammo that you're going to need to get in front of that person. And now start building backwards from July 1 on how can you make sure that you have the assets ready to go. So when July 1 hits, you have a tremendous shot to win. So that's that. There's going to be, this is franchising. There's going to be a lot of continuation of messaging and process that doesn't change year after year. If I went back a year ago, would I have told you that it takes 6 months? Yeah. We have the data now. Would I have told you to elevate culture? Partly, I always said brands don't sell brands, people do. Now is important to accelerate the culture. Would I have talked about top line revenue? Yeah, and that's probably a mistake. You can still have a great business by focusing on the bottom line, which is ultimately where private equity buys from in most cases. Show me that I can make money. And so sometimes you can grow fatter versus taller. And so taller is let's go add more franchisees, which is super complex. We go wider first. Franchisees making money. What does that do? It raises the walls on the outside that gets you climbing then. So hyper focus in on that franchisee success. Treat those that are within your system the best. And I got to take my own advice on that. It's a lot easier for us to go delight our current clients and continue to reconfigure, restructure our model to have the highest and best impact for our current clients than it is for us to go get new ones. And the same is true for our staff. Take your highest and best performers, over-invest in them. It's a lot easier to invest in them than it is to go get new staff. Take those two insights, put it to work, and get ready for 2023. Will you need a seatbelt? Yeah. Will it matter in the grand scheme of your life or your business? It won't. And you're going to figure out a pathway no matter what. That's what we do as humans. You're going to figure out a way to continue to move forward. I'm Nick Powles. Thank you for watching another edition of Coffee and Analytics. I hope you and your family have a wonderful holiday and Happy New Year. And we'll be sure to touch base again come January 2023 as we prepare to buckle up for whatever comes next. See ya.